I'm Kristin McKeel, and I graduated from WCA in 2008, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about my story and how WCA impacted me. I lived the first 9 years of my life with my parents, and throughout my life I would always go to my aunt and uncle's house, and I would spend like 2 weeks at a time, and it was like my favorite place to go. And I was 9 when my aunt and uncle took me in because they really wanted me to be able to have the opportunity to get a good Christian education, but also they saw the lifestyle my parents were living with their addiction, and they wanted to give me the opportunity to have a better life. My aunt and uncle had 3 kids, and their oldest was in 2nd grade at WCA, and the younger 2 were not even 1 and 3 when I came to live with them. And so eventually we all were one big happy family at WCA and graduated from there. Miss Cubberly was amazing. I remember sitting in her class and I looked over at a poster. I don't think I could tell you what it said now, but I remember I prayed and asked God into my heart, and she kept being really encouraging to me about it. And eventually I got up the nerve to get up in front of everybody and be the one to do the prayer requests and pray in front of the class, and that was like a really big accomplishment for me. Mrs. Osborne started to do the DARE program, which was terrifying to me because I was like, I knew I was the only one in the class who had parents with that background, and I was like so scared to like have anybody call on me or ask me about it. And she let me know like anytime I needed to talk to her about it, I could go to her, and even to this day I still go to her. And she was with me for the first funeral I faced. She met my parents and kind of saw their situation, and so she just had a really big influence on helping me work through the big situations. And then in 6th grade I had her again, and she went through the whole process of the guardianship with me, and she just prayed and prayed, and they signed the papers, and it was just such a sigh of relief, and it felt good to have a teacher like that would go through such a process with you and be so loving and caring and just be there for you. My mom's other sister, who also dealt with drugs, passed away of an overdose, and that was really the first time I had seen the seriousness of drugs and the battle of it and just how damaging it is. And then having a hard time seeing my mom and thinking about, well, is she going to be next? Is this going to be them? And just the impact it had, and watching my mom still struggle and go more downhill with her addiction as I'm losing other family members who deal with the same thing. It was just a really big battle to watch and see over the years. High school retreat was just a time to get away and worship and just really connect with everybody, and I really enjoyed that because you kind of got to see the teachers in a different way too, because it was just nice to be able to connect with them and have them guide me more like with my spiritual walk. I met Wes when I was in 6th grade and he was in 8th grade. He came to the school, and I just remember like having a really big crush on him. And it was funny, we had a teacher, Mrs. Minder, and she was our Bible teacher, and she was like, you know, it's never too soon to start praying for your future spouse. And so, you know, being in 8th grade, I was like, well, I want to marry Wes. So I would pray every night, like, I want to marry Wes, and, you know, I'd talk to God about it, and I was determined, like, I was going to marry him. I mean, he didn't know it, but I was going to. And so I prayed about it, and we were always good friends, and I always had a crush, and, you know, we were close. And he graduated 2 years before me, so I was like, okay, well, this is probably never going to happen, but I didn't give up hope. And so we exchanged numbers, and it was kind of one of those things like, all right, I'll call you sometime. And I was like, he's never gonna call. And he did, and so we started dating, and here we are 9 years later. So God heard my prayers even at 8th grade, so that was kind of fun. We have a boy and 2 girls, Levi, who is 7, and Mackenzie, who's 4, and Autumn, who is 7 weeks. At the time I graduated, I didn't have really much contact with my parents. They were not at my graduation, and they were not at my wedding, or they never met my kids. When I was pregnant with my first daughter, I received a call early in the morning and received news that my mom had overdosed and she didn't make it. And I could only keep thinking how I didn't remember my last words to her or the last conversation I had. Did she know I loved her? Did she know I still cared about her even through the addiction, that she still was, very important to me, and that no matter what, she was still my mom. So a few years after my mom died of an overdose, I got in contact with my dad. He had moved to Arizona with his mom to try to stay sober, and he was doing very well, and he came back to Michigan for over Thanksgiving to visit my brother, and he fell into some old crowds and ended up overdosing and went into a coma. And by the time I got to the hospital, he wasn't conscious, and so my brother and I had to make all the decisions to take him off the life support, and that was probably the hardest thing I had to do, because this time it was real and I was there and I saw him, and at the same time it didn't feel real because I was just talking to him and hearing him tell me about his day, and just it was just a hard thing to see and watch. WCA impacted me because it was there that I truly found fellowship with other friends and believers, and had somebody to lean on when I did go through those hard times with my parents, and or just even school or in general. It was nice to have teachers pray with you when you were going through a hard time, and just really feel like they actually cared about what you were dealing with, and how that made me feel was just, it was unreal to think that there was actually a school that would do that and have teachers who would just be so genuine with you and just actually take the time out of their day and their life to make you feel important. And that was something that was important to me, and just having that in my life helped me grow as a person. I'm thankful for the fact that my kids get to have the same experience that my husband and I did, learning to grow in our walk with God, and just the education that we received. It was such a great experience for us that I'm excited to see my children, learn and grow and just be a part of the family that we were a part of.